Did you get a cookie?
Quick question.
Cookies and brownies. What?
Quick question for you.
I haven't
Wait till after.
earned my cookie yet.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
We want to call the energy meeting to order. First, what we'd like to do is just go through the board and have each person introduce themselves. And then we will hear from Mr. Josh Borden. So, Doug, do you want to start?
Doug Thomas.
Roy Berthelin.
Martha Smith.
Deb Paul.
Ron Dunn.
Rick Darville.
Bob Petrie.
Okay. So, do you guys want to get up and you're on camera, so you have to step up to the mic and say your name, and we can start with your presentation.
I'll go first. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua Borden. I serve on the town council in Derry. Recently elected as chairman. I am also the founder of the Net Zero Task Force in Derry. And to my left is Jeff Mullen. He is the Net Zero Task Force chairman. And a couple of months ago, probably now, we had approached the town of Londonderry at a council meeting, select person meeting, and just talked briefly about some of our success in Derry with regards to solar energy. And from that, you know, I think you would say that the birth of this meeting is here. And so what our mission is, or part of my mission personally, is to help spread the message. I think what we did in Derry was, I consider, historical and spectacular for a couple of reasons. Energy and green energy has, for a long time, in my opinion, a political stigma around it. And our focus in Derry was to focus on one thing and one thing only, and that was using energy as a way to bring down our tax rate. And so we created a committee of people focused on just that through green energy solutions. And ultimately, what we've been able to do is create a situation where the town of Derry will be building, working with a solar company to build one of the largest solar fields in the state of New Hampshire. And that will completely eliminate or make our community on the municipal side a net zero community, meaning we will produce as much or more energy than we consume. And so we have goals as a committee, and some of our goals is to emulate and duplicate that with our K through 8 school system, as well as Pinkerton High School. And you know, there's a little bit of in-between time or downtime because we've passed the legislation with the solar. Now it's got to be built. So that is, contracts are signed, that is underway, and Jeff can speak more to that. We're working with the schools. We're in the process of doing that. And then Pinkerton. But, you know, we like to multitask, so we said, why not reach out to other communities and, you know, start close by and at least be able to share some of our successes and mistakes. And so that's the broad overview. Jeff can certainly go into details, and at any time you can ask specific questions or
Before
interrupt.
Jeff goes into his thing, Josh, could you just elaborate a little bit on the bill so people understand what that allows, please?
Can I defer to you?
Okay.
Up to, I guess, September of last year, for large solar projects, you are allowed to net meter up to 1 megawatt. And which means if you're producing power on your solar field on a given day and you're producing more than you can consume, you can export it into the grid and get a credit for it. But that was limited to smaller projects up to 1 megawatt. for us to do the town of Derry, we needed at least a 2.2 megawatt system. And if we wanted to do the schools, it has to be closer to 4 megawatts. So we had the empty landfill there, 10 acres. We've been lobbying our state reps and governor and everybody for 3 years to try to raise that cap. And then through a lot of the education efforts with us and others, we got them to raise the cap to 5 megawatts, but strictly for towns and municipalities.
Yeah, and so that legislation, so we had built a smaller system at our town wastewater treatment facility at the time that was under the 1 megawatt. We had finally convinced the council and the community that it was a good thing to do, but the only thing standing in our way at that time was the state legislation. So bottom line is the legislative body in Concord finally focused in on legislation that the governor could agree to, and that was raising the caps, the net metering caps to 5 megawatts for schools and municipalities only. And once that legislation was put through, the governor was excited and willing to sign off on that, and he actually came to Derry for his bill signing, and then as soon as that cleared, or signed, throughout that process, in anticipation of that bill being signed, we had worked on putting forward a much larger project, that 2.2 megawatt.
Oh, go ahead.
Just ask him for. Talk? Okay.
No, you just talk.
Just talk, okay. I have a clarification question for the record and to make sure everyone understands. Are you telling me that there was a legislative bottleneck that prevented anyone from actually building more solar than 1 megawatt? Can you explain that, please?
Well, it wouldn't prevent you from doing it, but it would make the economics very poor. So if you built something bigger than 1 megawatt before September of last year, when you were producing more power than you could use, you didn't have the right to export it to the grid. You would have just had to either get batteries to store it, or you would have had to throw it away.
Follow
Go
up?
ahead, you can keep talking.
So how much do you get paid for that excess energy that you sell back to? Who do you sell it back to?
We sell it back to in our case, it's Eversource is our local utility. And you get compensated at the default rate, which is the supply rate. You don't get compensated for the distribution and transmission part of it. But I'm going to be showing you some numbers in a few minutes that will probably answer more of your questions.
One last question, and the Eversource pays you for that, or do they get reimbursed somewhere?
So the way net metering works, right, when, say at nighttime, when we're not producing any solar, we have to buy power from Eversource. We have to buy it at the full rate, right? But we have a set of credits in the bank from when we're producing during the day that we're producing more than we use. So they use those credits to offset some of our bill.
Okay, thank you.
You are going to cover that later on in some slides, right?
Yep.
So you're going to tell us the differential between the credits we get back and what the normal rate from Eversource would be, that differential? Thank you.
All right, so continue with your presentation.
All right. So a little bit of background. The first one was on our mission statement. So back in 2016, Josh and the council came up with a mission statement that they wanted to be net zero by 2025 for all energy sources. And that was a very aggressive goal. And we got them to change that to be net zero for electricity by 2025, because it's very challenging to, right now, to be converting all the fleets in town, the trucks and the big bulldozers and front-end loaders and getting all the buildings that are on just on either oil or natural gas to a renewable source. Would have been very challenging. The technology's not really there yet to support a goal of 2025. So we backed off on that to in later years for that part of it, and we focused on electricity for getting net zero. We also made part of our charter to help go out and educate businesses and the schools and residents on energy saving initiatives that they could do. We've done solar up campaigns, and we've brought in New Hampshire Saves to help residents understand the programs out there available to them to reduce energy use. And we're currently, this year, we're focusing, after we've got the solar project going, we're now turning our focus to the vehicle fleets. As you probably know, there's a lot of electric vehicles coming out, trucks and buses and cars. So we're starting to map our town fleet of how many miles they use, when they expect the lease to run up, and when we can convert that possibly, and what type of electric vehicle we would be using. So that's kind of where our focus is turning to as we've got the solar project kind of underway. There's also, I put in a slide here that I think is important on the membership of the Net Zero Task Force. We have 5 members of the public, and they have various backgrounds. Some of us are engineers, some have business backgrounds, some have marketing backgrounds. But probably the key piece is we have a member from other key participating bodies. So we have the head of public works, we have head of code enforcement, head of the planning board, the Derry schools, and Pinkerton, and the conservation committee. So what that does, at least for me as the chair especially, is I don't have to spend my time chasing all these other committees. They're my conduit back and forth if I need to get information on their buildings or to share what we're doing, to see if there's interest in doing that, or if we need to do something with code enforcement or new rules for the planning board. That kind of facilitates all that and lets us kind of focus on the projects.
Yeah, and it really connects our board. It really interweaves or woves with all these other communities. I mean, I'm not sure. We've made adjustments at the planning board level, and I'm not sure that would have occurred had we not had a liaison. At school board meetings, our liaison is constantly. I'm not sure the schools would be as aware or be buying in it like they are if it wasn't for that school board member sitting in on our meetings and just learning, being educated, because it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to learn. That's why I referred to him. I'm still learning. And then, at the end of our council meetings during council comments, that's gone from council comments to council comments and or liaison or committee comments. So it's not just an opportunity for the council members to just speak about what's going on in the community, but it's also now more of a duty to report back to the public about what's happening in their committee. So that's an
important point, because you don't want to go work on something and you come into the town council and they say, first I've heard of this, so.
No, we do
this.
liaison reports at the end of our meetings as well, at our council meetings. But I had a question. What were the changes that came about in planning? That really piqued my interest when you said that.
We did some new codes around deployment of solar for residential and business. In particular, we didn't want people putting solar panels out in the front of the houses or businesses. It's okay up on the roof, but we didn't want to see ground mounts, say, on somebody's front lawn. So we required that to be in the back or sides or on the roofs in certain setbacks.
Oh, okay, thank you. What you guys said about bringing in the other departments is really important. We had planned on doing that with our group as well. Like I said, we're in the infancy stages, so we can learn a lot from you guys.
as we move forward.
And I would just say so we weren't the original energy committee. The original energy committee deserves a lot of credit too. They really broke ground on a lot of things. But where I think one of the things, timing prevented them from being successful like we are mostly. But another area that we tried to improve on was this kind of liaison. I think of it like if becoming net zero is the goal, it's like the hub, and then the spokes are the liaisons to all those committees. And we would never do this if we were just in this room alone. Like, the biggest reason it works is the way our board's set up, I think.
And so I didn't include a slide in here, but what we really did for the first 2 years was to get a handle on what we had from a situation in the town. So we spent the first 6 months collecting bills and energy consumption, and we pumped it into a tool called the EPA tool. And it's a free tool from the EPA that allows you to enter all the historical consumption, whether it's oil and gas or electrical or even water if you want. And so this gave us an overall picture of how our buildings were performed, because the EPA tool compares it to other buildings throughout the country and through your region. And I'll give you an example that probably really surprised a lot of people. We have 7 schools in town, and most of them are old with the exception of Barca, which was built in 1994. And when we got the rankings for the 7 schools, Barca was by far the worst performing school. They were ranked 18th percentile for score. And after we went in there and looked at it, is they had the best control systems and HVAC systems, but a lot of the janitorial staff didn't know how to operate it. And they were getting complaints about one room being cold, one being hot, and they were prying open dampers and doing all kinds of crazy stuff so that the system was operating very poorly. But that was probably the lowest hanging fruit. I mean, they had it all there, they just didn't know how to use it, right? So with some education, they brought the building way back up to the level that it should have been at. Other things, were just, the tool allows you just to say, what's my priority? Do I just start on this building, or which building should I start with? It gives it to you in kind of spades that, okay, this building is doing well, maybe I'll wait on that one and really start at the bottom and work my way up.
And I would just say that it puts out as clear as day what that low-hanging fruit is. It allowed our committee, like Jeff alluded to prioritize. But more importantly, by the time we got to pitching, we want to do a solar project, we had built credibility with that council and the community. Because, I mean, there's more that maybe he'll go into, maybe not, but LED lights and so on and so on and so on. And so without spending money, this was just really smart people identifying easy things to fix.
Yep, spend some money, but.
Could you go into a little bit of detail insofar as what was included in the EPA ranking score? Like, what items did they consider?
What items does it consider in the EPA tool?
Right.
So, you have to model the buildings to give it the square footage and the number of floors, things like that. And then you pump in the utility bills. I mean, you don't have to know what the insulation is or anything like that. I mean, it will kind of point it out if it is a leaky building that your energy consumption's high. But it's really just, if you know how to work with Excel spreadsheets, it's putting in the square footage and then the past utility bills.
And once you get that data assembled, do you call in energy consultant engineers at that point?
We were lucky enough that we had people on the staff that we've got engineers. I'm a civil engineer, and we got another civil engineer. We have an electrical engineer who used to work at MIT. So we have a pretty good staff. We have DPW, who's we can tap into them for their electricians and stuff. So we haven't had to do that. But I can see, you know, if for smaller towns and stuff, if you don't get the right volunteers, you might have to. But the EPA tool does not take an engineer. It only takes somebody that's good populating Excel spreadsheets.
Well, I'm just a little bit
Now,
confused.
well, just to finish that, though, I mean, the New Hampshire Saves program is still there, right? I mean, they almost killed it. But once you got your EPA tool and you've identified your priority buildings, then you bring in New Hampshire Saves. And they'll do an audit for you of the buildings, and they'll come back with a set of recommendations for what you should do. And they'll also give you rebates, up to 50% in some cases. So
Came into
I
my
would
house.
recommend that avenue versus going out and hiring somebody. But
Well, at this point, I checked with New Hampshire Saves. They don't have any rebates, credits, or whatever, grants, or whatever you want to refer to them. They expired on January 1st of this year. But they said check back every couple of weeks to see what's coming down the pike. So currently, there's nothing.
my understanding was the legislature passed a bill that funds them at 2021 levels.
Funds what?
That funds the New Hampshire Saves program at 2021 levels. So it's flat.
Well, yes, but there is a backlog, and depending on how long that backlog is, make it up depends on when they would come to you. But getting back again to the EPA score, so the EPA score only considers square footage and your utility bills. It doesn't consider anything else.
No.
So then you bring in New Hampshire Saves, which I think primarily considers efficiency. I would think, because that's
They
I
come
understand
in
that.
and typically do an audit of the building, and they'll come back with a very specific recommendations, because they will do an infrared study on the building to see where heat losses are and stuff, whether you need new insulation or in the roof or the walls, windows, heating systems. They'll soup to nuts.
There's no charge on that?
I don't know with the new legislation I think it used to be, you had to pay for it up front, but you got it back if you went ahead with the recommendations that they, to implement for the improvements.
So the funding, Doug, has
When he
that been
finishes.
passed for 2022 to match what it was in 2021? Or is that still in the hopper, so to speak?
No, that's a bill that went into law. It puts it back to where it was in 2021, I believe, whatever, 2021. And so, but how much money is in there, you'd have to ask Eversource, because they're the ones that control the.
There's going to be a queue, so, I mean, get yourself in the queue, but you got to know what you want them to focus on first.
Right, just hold on. So Ray, you had a question?
Yeah, I just that, I actually made a call about that, and I was told it ended in January. And on top,
When did you make the call?
I made the call
A week ago.
this month.
Okay.
Yeah.
I made it last week.
Right, and on top of that, when, a lot of times, they look at what the average income is in the town, okay? So, they want to address towns that, have low income, So, sometimes that puts you low in the queue, But, like you say, get your name in there anyway.
Right. And if you don't feel it's moving fast enough, then maybe you do have to bring in some outside party. Like our schools, and this started before our committee was formed, hired Honeywell to come in and do audit all the buildings. They paid them $100,000 to audit 7 schools. And then Honeywell came back with a whole list of recommendations that, to implement. And that's what they ended up putting into an RFP and awarding a contract.
One other thing, have you ever had any dealings with Southern New Hampshire Planning in regards to helping you out with energy audit or anything like that?
Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a member of that. They have not done that in the past. They've done some solar up campaigns, But to my knowledge, they haven't done that.
Well,
Okay. You want to continue? I don't want to keep you guys here all night, so. I mean, I don't care. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay, but I do know other people have
I
lives.
think we got some cookies, you know, if you want to hang around.
Yeah, you're tempting me. I'm trying to lose weight. So, so again, we spent the first couple of years just working away at getting the information on the buildings and implementing plans. But, you know, when we started with the low-hanging fruit, because we wanted to prove to the town council that these projects were going to save the town money. LEDs were the easy ones, you know, usually a 2-3 year payback, and the costs keep coming down on them, and the choices now you have in LED lights is so much better than it was a few years ago. But then there's controls, smart controls in your buildings, and all kinds of things you can do. But overall, we were able to reduce electricity consumption of 20% in town during those 2 years. So it was pretty significant. But it's important you do that because you don't want to go put in a solar field size to the original energy consumption, and then you drop it 20%, then you got an oversized solar field.
Yeah.
And that 20% extra in the solar field is not going to make you any money. They don't compensate you for that extra very much. It's at a very low rate.
May I ask, what financial arrangement do you have with the photovoltaic company? Do they offer you an option of packages where you buy
I'm
out?
gonna get into that in a minute.
Oh, okay, good.
So we're currently saving about $500,000 on the municipal side and energy consumption. A lot of it's electricity, some of it's switching from oil to natural gas, some of it's HVAC controls, insulation projects, things like that. The Dairy School project has done very well. They're saving almost $600,000 a year on that project, and with very similar initiatives. Now, I'm going to get into what we've done on the solar landfill. As Josh said, actually about 4 years ago, we put in a smaller system out at the recycling center, 86 kilowatt. And it's saving us about $25,000 a year in energy consumption. It's doing its job, but we put it under 100 kilowatts because we wanted full net metering. And at the time, anything under 100 kilowatts, you get full compensation. And we also wanted to kind of prove to the town council that this wasn't smoke and mirrors, this stuff really works, right? And so that's worked very well. But then, so since then, we've been trying to tee up, okay, what's the ultimate goal here was to get us off all our electricity from renewable energy. And we knew we had this 10-acre site that was totally unused for the last 20 years for the landfill. But we couldn't put in the size system we needed to because the legislation just didn't allow it. So we've been lobbying state legislative for over maybe close to 3 years to do this. And we had a couple state reps in our memberships that helped us out a lot to navigate things. But as we discussed before, we finally got it, the bill signed in August. We had started in anticipation back in the spring, writing the RFP, talking to vendors, bringing them in for a site visit. And then we officially released the RFP in late July with a deadline of September 1st. Legislation got signed in August, everything lined up. We took close to 3 months to do the vendor evaluations and then pick a vendor. So we had 3 different options in the RFP, and I'll go through those for you. Well, before I do that, I did have another thing. If you do decide to do an RFP, you know, our RFP is available to you. It's a public document. We also have scoring criteria. We came up with 13 categories of technical and business criteria that we looked at for each company. One of them obviously was landfill experience. And then we got prices ranging anywhere from 4.3 million to over $7 million for this project. That was quite a range, and most of them were in the 4.3 to 5 million. There was a couple outliers at around 7 million. And there was if we wanted to not buy the system and just have them build it and buy the electricity from them, the prices range from 6 cents to 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, we currently pay about 13 cents a kilowatt hour at our waste and water works. They consume over 2 million kilowatt hours a year at the waste and water works, and I think even part of that serves Londonderry. The rest of the town was about 1.5 million kilowatt hours. So we saw that as a big savings right off the bat if we just buy the electricity, right? But we wanted to explore all three options. So we knew one of the things that federal tax laws, we can't take advantage of that, obviously. And there's a very nice write-off of 26% federal tax credit if you put in a solar system. And there's also, for companies, they can do accelerated depreciation
Residence,
in
right?
5 years.
It would be in a residence.
No, it's also for commercial.
Really?
Really?
That's not what,
That's not.
But it's
that's
not
not
from,
what we
an-
found out.
but it's not from municipal.
Not municipal.
Not municipal, but he's saying commercial can get it and residents can
So
get
a
it.
private company,
But municipals and schools cannot because they don't pay
So
taxes.
you could not.
we cannot, but if we hire a third party, they can take advantage of it. And at the end of the 5 or 6 years, they can then sell it to us at a discounted rate. That's called a lease with an option to buy, PPA, they call it.
Yeah, yeah.
So the first slide we have here is a lease only. So it doesn't cost the town anything. The savings start out at $70,000 a year, and they increase to about $140,000 a year by the 25th year. All these systems had a 25-year life with a warranty behind them for that, which is pretty normal in the industry. The total savings for us would have been $3.5 million. And because we're not spending anything up front, there's no payback. When we would have to enter into a 25-year purchase agreement. Now, the thing that struck us on this particular option was we had one vendor come in at 6.8 cents per kilowatt hour. And they had no inflation rate, no escalation rate. So that 6.8 cents was going to stay fixed for 25 years. That kind of blew us out of our chairs because everybody else had, like one guy came in at 6.2 cents first year, but then a 2% escalation. And by the 5th year, they've already reached that 6.8, right? So when we saw that, we kind of circled around that one pretty quick, but I'll go through the other two options. The second one was, okay, we're going to go into a purchase agreement for the electricity for the first 6 years at the 6.8 cents. At the end of the year 6, we have the option to buy the system. And here's where it gets a little fuzzy because the vendor said, we estimate based on our book value, we would sell it to you at 1.9 million at the end of 6 years. That's a pretty good buy coming down from 4.5 million or 4.7 million down to 1.9, right? And that actually helps our business case. We can save over $5.5 million if we pull the trigger at the end of the 6th year. But here's the catch. They can't guarantee that purchase price of 1.9 million because of IRS rules. The IRS says they have to sell it to us at fair market value. And fair market value 6 years from now could be way up here or it could be way down there. But we have that option. That is in the contract. If at the end of that 5 or 6 years, if we want to buy it, or we have two other options at 12 years, 17 years, and I think that's it.
Excuse, interrupting, but what would determine the market value?
It's whatever somebody's willing to pay for that solar field. You know, you can advertise it, I guess, and find out that there's no, electricity prices keep going up. That solar field's probably gonna be worth a lot more.
A question, in that contract, was there anything that specified where those solar panels were manufactured?
No, we did not. The ones,
Question, Doug?
You want, if where those solar panels were manufactured?
I understand a lot of them are done in China.
a lot of them, the good ones come out of Korea. Yeah, and now there's, Tesla makes them, but they don't really sell them separately. You have to buy them with their Powerwall and stuff. But there is a new company in Buffalo that's starting to make them. But the company said, look, we're going to put in the best technology that we can get. I mean, when we look at the panels that we put in 4 years ago at the recycling center, there were 280 watt panels. Today they were looking, when we got responses, they were looking at 525 watt panels. So, you know, the capacity of these panels are going up very quickly. We obviously prefer not to have like Chinese ones, but at the end of the day, we didn't, since we don't own it,
Yeah.
it's hard to dictate what it's gonna be.
Ray had a question.
I'm kind of curious, you talk about the capacity, which is like all things being perfectly good and no loss of energy, but in actuality, what is the efficiency rating of the panels that you purchased? Because that's far different than the capacity.
Yeah, so most of them are pretty similar, where they show a loss in capacity every year of about 0.5%. And they guarantee that at the end of 25 years, the panels will be producing no less than 80% of the original capacity.
And Ray had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in the contract about maintenance, who maintains them? Do
They own
maintain
it, it's theirs, they own it. The vendor.
Okay, but, you know, I'm thinking like, the wintertime, right? They get covered with snow. Are you allowed to uncover them, or
They don't,
just wait for the snow to melt?
I've had them 5 years and the snow usually slides off within a half a day because they're at this angle.
Well, yeah, I see the angle of the ones you have are quite steep, but is that the typical angle these would be at?
Yeah, you want 25, 35 degrees, so you get optimum sun.
Okay,
But they're black usually, and
Yeah.
they heat up very quickly, and the snow just slides. And you have to be careful when you do put them on roofs. If you have a roof, for example, and you got maybe an entrance into your building where that snow's coming off, you could do some damage, but.
Yeah. Thank you.
Where is the Derry landfill? I'm not sure where it is.
It's right near the Londonderry line. Is that Fordway? Fordway.
On
So if
Broadway?
you, if you're getting off exit 4, and instead of taking, on the Londonderry Dairy exit, instead of taking a right and coming, I guess, towards here, you take you go towards downtown Derry, when you get to the first light, you could before you get into downtown, you take a right on Fordway, and it's off down there on the right.
You can see 93 right there. It
Okay.
goes by it too.
So how many
Thank you.
panels do you have in your farm, your solar farm? How many panels do y'all have out there?
The system that we have today or the one that in the future?
Well, the 2.2 megawatt.
I think it's around, I want to say 2,500.
Each one producing a little over 500 watts? Each panel producing a little over 500 watts, correct? Okay.
Now, I didn't mention this before, but I don't know if you guys have a landfill or empty land, but when we put in the system at the recycling center, we were able to put it on a little piece of land that it was just a little hillside. And they used a very economical way of putting it in the foundation. It was just a screw foundation. It took them a day to put them all in. And whereas on the landfill, they have to be very careful that they don't penetrate the cap. The cap's 18 to 24 inches below grade, and the New Hampshire DES does not want that cap broken, so we have to come in and put in an engineered ballast system that will not cause any settling and jeopardize that cap.
Ours is a Superfund site on Auburn Road, the big
Okay. So there's a little more
Superfund site.
money involved with a cap site, so we were hoping to get it down to like $2 a watt. I came in around $2.2 a watt because of the landfill extra costs.
Okay, so continue.
So the 6-year thing is looks good, but we'll have to wait and see what the buyout price is. And the only other caution, though, is our Public Works guy loves the lease option because he never has to worry about maintenance. If we do go ahead and buy it, then we do have to turn around to a vendor and say, we need you to operate and maintain it for us, because we don't really want to hire anybody to do that. And it's not expensive, it was around $30,000 a year, and we incorporated that into our business case, and we still came out with $5.5 million in savings.
But
That's
it's good
awesome.
because it's nice because it gives future council and ultimately the residents the say. You know, today's residents, today's council chose to do the lease to own option. A future council, whoever that may be, may like things as is based on whatever. Or they may want to take advantage and, you know, so
Yeah.
they have the option.
I
We're
know
not
there's a
tying
few more
anyone's hands.
questions, but I just wanted to ask a quick question first. Do you have any other sites that you're thinking about in Derry to add more? Because I keep thinking and talking to different people, and municipals that I'm speaking with are talking about how in other parts of New Hampshire, they're doing regional and connecting it and making it more powerful that way. And I was just curious because, I mean, in my head, I'm thinking of other spots that Londonderry may be able to have it. I mean, even though the Auburn Road could get up to, what did they say, 5,000? Or something like,
panels?
yeah, that was huge. Because it's a
Pretty
big
big.
chunk of land. So I was just thinking if you guys were thinking about that, and would you,
So 2 things, or 3 things. Our landfill is 10 acres, and we're estimating we're going to fill it up, usable land, maybe 70 to 80%.
okay,
We want to kind of keep that reserve capacity for when we start electrifying the fleets. So we're going to need to be able to charge all the cars and trucks.
oh,
So
okay.
that's one thing in the back of our mind. The other thing we're doing is, your business case, because we built it at the landfill that's next to our waste and water plant, we're actually able to use a lot of the electricity on site, which helps your business case a lot. If you're shipping 100% of that electricity out, your business case is going to be more marginal. It's not going to be as strong. So
Okay.
the more you can use behind the meter, the better your
Oh,
payoff
okay.
will be.
That's good to keep in mind. I know we had a few more questions, Ray?
Yeah, that's a landfill. It's been there for quite a time. And obviously, there's methane. Right now, it's just being lost to the atmosphere. Is there any possibility of gaining any value from that?
There are towns that have been doing it. We haven't investigated that.
But some energy companies are looking at tapping landfills. And when we look at energy, we need to look at all sources. So, I'm just wondering if that's anything you even thought about.
We've kind of had our hands full. We had kind of in the back of our mind, we know about it, but we haven't really investigated it. But that's a good idea.
Okay, does anybody else on the board have any other questions for them?
I had one last
Oh,
slide.
I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I apologize.
And that's if you got money available, and we thought maybe this was going to be the best option because bond rates were so low. We were expecting the prices to come in really low. And so if we buy the system at 4.7 million, we still come out with about $3.5 million savings. And the only reason it's matching the lease price is because the vendor came in with that fixed price per kilowatt hour. If they had the escalation factor on it, then this would have looked better than the lease, so.
Okay.
I have a question for you guys.
Go ahead.
When you guys first started out, how long did it take you to get to where you are today?
Well, we started 6 years ago.
Okay, so we're looking at basically 5 to 6 years to get to where you
No.
guys are.
Well, we had to
can
wait
jump.
3 years
Oh,
for the
that's what I'm trying to get
legislation,
to.
but
Right,
yeah.
they did a lot of the legwork.
So I'm trying to get at like,
Yeah, so that's the big reason. Again, one of my missions, personal mission, is to spread. I'm really proud of what, as he speaks, I'm like so amazed with our journey. It doesn't have to be that hard for everyone. Like, I want to share and collaborate with communities. We've done a lot of the work. I mean, we have members from Hampstead here listening, which is fantastic. We've done a lot of the work. We're totally willing to share what we can. And then the other thing that Jeff just mentioned is we spent 2 to 3 years waiting on legislation. So it's been a 3 to 6 year journey. And it doesn't have to be that long for you. I mean, the first thing he started with is going to take a lot of work, the EPA tool. That's vital. Getting the right people on your board, growing your board so you have that spoke and wheel situation with liaisons is equally vital. And then there is no reason that communities, municipalities, schools are not taking advantage of becoming net zero. It should be happening across the state. And the last thing, because it's definitely happening across the country, we're one of the last states to, you look around New England, I mean, we're playing catch up, which is great.
Yeah.
It's a lot of savings for
Please
our
remove it.
constituents. The last thing we were able to do is, which was an awesome surprise, is the federal legislation brought back the idea of earmarks. We're not going to debate that, whether we like it or not, but in this instance, we certainly do because Senator Shaheen was offering or put out the idea of bidding or getting in the queue for earmarks or for, what am I trying to say?
Yeah, earmark.
For earmarks, for grants. So we put our project in, and we were just awarded half of.
We asked for 2 million, we got $500,000. But
So it's going to drive this rate down
So
even more.
our rate will go from what we're gonna do is give that money to the vendor for his upfront engineering costs. So in turn for giving that money up front, he's gonna lower our rate from 6.8 cents to 6 for the life of the contract.
Here's another thing. Have you guys ever looked at, this is something I just started looking into, is because of the water issue, you put in these hydro tanks, and there's a small solar panel engine on the outside, or a motor, for lack of, I'm not an engineer, that gets it going, and then these tanks hydro jet, and they make tons of electricity for peak times of the year. And when they're doing that, that water is then purified because of the spinning and the turbine of it, and that gives you now drinking water or cleaned water source. So, I mean, have you guys been thinking about any of that? We think about it because we have to think about water in Londonderry because we've got such bad water, and so I just was curious
I'm not
if
familiar
you.
with that, but if you have some information for it, we'll take a
Yeah,
look at it.
I keep digging. It's like a rabbit hole you go down. It's crazy.
But Josh made me just think of something. I know you guys were thinking, okay, maybe we can't get into New Hampshire Saves right away, but maybe you go after money from Senator Shaheen to, say, fund a study of all your buildings in town.
That would be awesome. Okay, so last questions from the board, and then I'm going to ask the public. So go ahead.
One question that I had, you talked about the vendor offering you the fixed rate. Was that something that you negotiated when you were negotiating the contract with them, or they just?
No, we didn't negotiate. We We made sure, though, we had a healthy number of vendors that were interested in the RFP.
Okay.
And I went out and talked to people and wanted to make sure we had reputable ones. And then we invited them in. The ones that show up obviously had interests, but we issued the RFP and then we evaluated on the RFP. There was no negotiations. I mean, we couldn't believe the offer anyway, but
They threw it out there, you took advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say there is other work, as I think. I mean, calling Deb and Julie Huss to make sure that our mission is constantly being talked about in local news. Not just, being proactive in inviting vendors to our community or to our meetings, like things like this. So we're building that credibility. So when the RFP comes out, it's not two vendors, it's,
so we have a
10.
guy on our staff that does the marketing and Facebook and everything, and Craig. So when we go to the town council, I mean, I can remember way back, there was, there's people in town that were saying, climate change is a hoax and it's gonna cost us more money and all this stuff, and
what about
We haven't heard-
cloudy days and.
we haven't heard boo since, really. I mean, we go to the town council meetings, we don't hear any negative.
Well, when you can prove that you're saving the town money, they're willing to listen.
And to that note, when we put in our first solar panel, I don't know if we negotiated or if it just happened to come about or how it came about, but that we installed a TV in the front entrance of our town hall, and there's 4 different slides. It's real data in real time. It's got today the hourly data, the monthly data, the yearly data, and it's just flowing with how we're doing. And it's constantly showing that we're exceeding expectations. And of course, when we present to the council, we do projections. Jeff's always makes sure to be as conservative as possible so we can win.
Could I say something?
Yeah, and then I'm going to put it out to the audience.
In regards to that, getting the word out, okay, you're doing a great job. Have you done anything with the schools as to have the children in the high schools, whatever, science program, whatever, and them to then present at a town council meeting?
That's a great idea. That's been one of our goals. We have not succeeded on that. We actually had a guy on our staff for 5 years, Brewster, who was from the STEM program at Pinkerton, trying to get him to get it. But unfortunately, he was, I think, half retired, and he did retire. But we got a new guy from Pinkerton. We're hoping now to kind of reignite that.
Yeah, I see the science department from Pinkerton was sending kids out from, I don't know, biology or science or whatever, doing water sampling. I mean, wait a minute, we're talking about energy here. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Well,
I'm
but
sorry, Ray.
the Dairy
We need to
schools-
focus.
Yeah, the school board of Dairy Schools is supportive of it.
Okay,
I
so
have a question.
you have a question? Go ahead.
I'm just curious, besides your project, have you considered the new community aggregation?
Yes, we have a
Projects out
guy
there.
that monitors that and participates in the meetings. I'm just gonna say we're being cautious at this point because we see an organization being built. The savings being promised are kind of tiny at this point, and we want to see it work first, so we're kind of just watching and waiting at this point.
Is that something that you could combine with what you currently have, if you decide to go with it?
Is it something what?
That you could combine,
It's-
or is it one or the other, or would you?
Can I
No,
interrupt you?
it'd be a separate program because it's geared towards residents and
Well-
businesses, right?
Okay.
There are, I think, 3 or 4 towns, and Mike Speltz, who's not here tonight, had brought this up, and he is investigating it. Keene is one of them, that actually produce enough electricity that they've actually become the reseller to their own community for the electricity.
Well,
And I can't remember what he called it. It's in my notes here. Wait a second. I'll tell you what it is. It's CPCNH, whatever the heck that is,
Yeah, yeah, we're.
CNH membership. He's looking into
That's a
that.
good organization to join. We're a member. It's $200 a year for a municipality to join.
But they talk about things like what Doug is saying, I think. But you can you can become your own electrical company, just like you've become your own water company.
Yeah, I understand.
And that benefits the town.
We don't want, I mean, we're doing well so far. We didn't want to sign up for something that isn't proven yet. And last thing we wanted to do was get 33,000 people mad at us for switch, because you don't get any choice, they switch you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was you could buy into it. It was a community could buy into it.
Community buys
Just like
in.
you buy into water.
Town council says, okay, we're gonna do it. That means this company comes in and switches everybody from
Oh,
their default to the new.
okay,
And the only way is if you default out,
Opt out.
opt out.
Yeah.
okay.
We just, I mean, I hope it works, and we're just kind of watching and hoping
Yeah.
it does.
So anybody else on the board? Anything?
Are you guys available for calls, contact?
I can be available, for sure.
Could we have your phone
After
number?
the, if you want, if you can write it down.
Yeah.
Or give it to me and I'll give it to them. I have your
You have my
contact,
number.
yeah. I have his contact, I will share
Okay.
with everyone so that you can contact him.
You want to be the focal point if we have questions to you, to them?
It probably should go that way, yes. So anybody sitting in the audience that would like to step forward and say something, now's your opportunity. So if you guys from Hampstead want to step up and say why you came, that would be kind of cool, to let us know why you're here. I know, just step right up to a mic anywhere. There's mics over there. And just state your name and where you're from and just kind of why you're here.
Have a brownie. David Smith. I live in Hampstead. I'm on the school board there, and I'm very interested in solar power. I have it for my own residential. I've had it for almost 2 years, and it's saving me money already. And I read about this in the paper, and I thought, wow, this is really amazing what Derry is doing and how they've kind of pioneered this process right now, and the legislature, et cetera. I reached out to Jeff and asked about, hey, can we just get some information just to pass around, just to see what's there? And he said, well, hey, I'm going to be presenting here. You guys want to hear? And I said, yeah, I'd love to be there. And I brought along Steve Morse, who's another resident of Hampstead, and he's on the select board, just as a, hey, maybe this is a potential that, is something we could bring to our town or not. Definitely is interesting. We haven't really vetted it at all. We haven't even started to create anything like this. Not sure if we will or not. I'm hoping we do, cross my fingers. But so we're just here to hear and listen, hear questions, because like you, we probably have the same questions. So it's nice to hear some of these and learning a little bit even more from what you've looked into and asked. But just hear like the excitement and what it can do for the residents. So
Well,
That's
thank you. And this is only our second meeting, so
awesome.
Right.
We're on the learning
We're
curve.
brand new.
All right. So we're 2 behind you. So, all right. But thank you. This is great. I appreciate
right.
it,
Well,
especially you two. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
thank you for coming. So we're gonna, if you want to stay, you can stay. Otherwise, you guys can go home and have dinner and stuff.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much for
Exactly,
coming. It
thank
was
you.
very
Yeah.
informative.
Very, very much.
Appreciate it.
Oh, yes?
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So which one of you two gentlemen is going to be the focal point when Deb contacts? It would be you, Jeff, or
Yeah, I usually contact Josh because I've known Josh for a while.
what are you wearing? What's on top of your head?
Oh, I have a little engineering company on the side.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, thank you.
Appreciate you
It
guys
was
coming.
great. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we're gonna focus back in on what the agenda is, and
What is that?
we're gonna be I'd like to have some discussion on setting up the communication rules so that we don't overlap research work. It is okay for 2 or 3 of you to work on a project and to talk and to get data, as long as it is not a quorum. And it's okay to share to all, you just can't respond all. So for example, Rick, if you were saying, I'm gonna go, look into this, you can send it out to all, so everybody on the board would see it. But if you wanted to respond, Bob, right, you would say to me, you would respond to me, and then I would respond to Rick saying, Bob said not to do this, just so you don't accidentally hit return all, because then that's a quorum and that would be against the rules. So, we don't want to duplicate workload
No.
and research, because that's really what it is. Like Debbie, they were saying, it's getting all this data together and at different points. And that's why we went through our strengths and weaknesses and what we like researching. So that we
someone
can,
can send out a community information notice, but then it's just in the response that you gotta be careful.
right, it's the
Okay.
response. So that, anybody have any questions on that? Anybody? No?
I
Oh.
just have one follow-up to that.
Yes.
Because I have been talking to people at the town, and they said it would be easier to have one person
Right,
be the one that they report the information back to.
right. So for the town,
I'd be
it's better.
happy to do that.
It is better to have one person, and the information that you get could then come back to me, and then we can disseminate it at the meetings or prior to the meeting so that everybody is in charge.
If you would do it, if possible, prior to the meeting, so we can at least,
Digest it.
exactly.
Okay, no problem.
Would you like me to be that person?
I
or-
think that I would have to go in first and introduce you since I'm the chair. I would say, on behalf of the committee, Martha would be going in and contacting you and be our conduit, if that's okay. I think that's the proper
Okay.
etiquette.
Could I say something? And don't take this the wrong way.
No.
But I'm thinking Ron, only because he's on several other town committees?
Nah,
No?
no,
Okay,
no, it's fine.
okay.
You don't want to clog the works.
Okay.
All right, so now we're gonna go on to going over Energy Week virtual meeting schedule. I know a couple of you guys have signed in for this, and I think it's crazy unless you want to, but it's crazy for all of us to sign in when we could just have one person do it and then report back. I do think it would be interesting to get to see most of these, and even if we can't get to them, to be able to reach out and have them send us recordings of what went on and the vendors and things like that, so we could then reach out and contact them. Does anybody have any comments or?
Well, the only comment I have to that is that they had several different, sections that they were running. Do you want one of us to go to all of those, or do you want,
I think it would be best, but it's up to the group. It's not up to me.
It's a virtual, it's
Yeah,
not,
it's a
a-
virtual?
yeah. Well,
It's
that's what-
not up to me. It's up to you all.
And it's different times and,
Exactly, I've got the schedule here. So, did you say, Debbie, that someone's already signed up for some of these, or?
I signed up because she sent it to us and
Yeah.
I was interested in, I think, the energy efficiency, so I had signed up for that one, but
Energy, is that the second one on the list?
I didn't bring it with me,
What is the
so-
second one? Read it.
Opportunities in New Hampshire Clean Energy Financing.
It might have been that one.
I think that's probably what it is. And that goes along with what I was initially volunteering
Then you
for.
should
We,
Then you should do that.
well,
You should do that.
maybe we should both do it.
Well, I probably will listen
That way we
in.
can get, now, can we coordinate, once we go, look at attend the video, the Zoom type meeting? Can we communicate between ourselves without going through
Yeah.
you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, because there's only two of you.
and then our findings would go to you for
Correct.
dissemination.
Right.
Martha, you wanna do that?
Sure,
Can you give me your home number, please?
sure.
Well,
I have, do you get the contact list?
Oh, that's right, I got
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Should have it.
okay, so what are the other topics that are on there, if you wouldn't mind? You have it, so if you could read them. Maybe somebody else wants to do some of those.
That's on April the 12th at 3 o'clock. No, excuse me, 2 to 3 o'clock. So it's 1 hour, Martha. The first one is on the 11th of April. I don't know what days of the week those are.
It doesn't matter.
And that one's entitled New Hampshire Energy Week kickoff, New Hampshire Energy Week kickoff.
April 11th is a Monday. April 11th is a Monday.
And that one doesn't sound that interesting. That's like
describes
an
it.
overview, right?
It starts with a virtual kickoff event. Our most watched programming will feature remarks from U.S. senators, energy thought leaders, and national energy developers, and more.
That sounds, what time is that one?
That one's the
10 to
11th.
11.
And what time is it?
I'm sorry, what?
What time?
10 to 11.
10 to 11.
10 to
That's
11?
on the 11th, Monday, you said, Ron?
Okay.
Monday, 11th, yep.
Okay, so what's the next one?
Hang on a second, I gotta make a note.
Okay.
And then the 12th would be Tuesday. And the next one is on 4/13, April 13th, from 11 to 12. The road to EVs, electric vehicles, in New Hampshire. Electric vehicles will be an overgrowing portion of the vehicle fleet in the coming decade. In this session, we will talk to experts from the ski industry, SKI, the New Hampshire Department
Yeah,
of Environmental
I don't know if that,
Services.
we're not ready for that yet. I mean, Derry would be because they're getting ready to look at vehicles, but
Yeah, that's
I don't
gonna
think
be
we're
very
there
complex
yet.
for them.
yeah, I'll tell Josh about it.
Yeah. So that's the third one. The fourth one is on the 14th, which would be Thursday, from 11 to 1, New Hampshire Energy Week Career Fair and Resource Event.
That's jobs, right? So, no.
Let me read the rest of it. Career Fair. Resource,
fair.
resource event is fully virtual, engaged in, yeah, it's jobs. Yeah. And the last one is on Friday from 2 to 3. Energy Champion Awards can celebrate the end of New
So
Hampshire.
I think that really, you guys are doing the only one that really is
Yeah, the
pertinent to us.
important one, so financing.
I may just for grins kick in, look at the one at 10 to 11th on Monday.
Right.
Okay, so now we'll move to the next thing, which we've already just talked about with Martha, which was addressing outside agencies. I think it was Rick that brought this to my, or Bob, one of the two of them, brought it to my attention. What would be the proper way to outreach to these people? So when I was talking to a couple of energy companies, I basically just stated my name, what city I was from, and that I sat on an energy committee for that town, and we were gathering information. Is there someone I can talk to?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, and just keep a list so that, maybe submit that list so that, we all know, so we don't
Well,
duplicate the phone call.
that write-up that I sent you, that you sent to everyone, as an attachment that I sent you, there's like 7 or 8 different websites there. That, to be honest with you, that's a lot of time to go through all these websites to pick up pointers about this whole thing, as far as possible financing or grants. So someone's gonna have to divvy that up, Debbie, for us to go through all these websites, because it's very time consuming. I went through 2 of them, and it took me 2 days.
Okay, so I'll go through that and divvy it up.
And that attachment that I sent you,
Well, you'd have to resend it to me now because you've done 2, so you gotta take those 2 off.
no, that's it. It's one of those 2 that I sent you already,
Oh, okay.
that you sent out to everyone else. And there's, what do you call it, the hyper HPPL links
Oh,
Yeah,
highlighted.
yep.
So you can readily go to those websites, and if you want to divvy them out,
Okay,
there you go.
okay.
Let
Good.
me ask this,
I'm sorry, Rick?
does the town have any kind of Google cloud storage for, say, if we wanted to, for this committee?
I do not know. We'd have to ask Mike. I know they're having issues already, because they're having a lot of firewall issues, having a lot of email issues and stuff, because they keep trying to get hacked and they keep upgrading the system, and they're just, there's some issue stuff going on, but I can most definitely ask if we have space that we can store data.
I'm coming up to speed on this new age stuff, and it really, it's really a great repository for anyone who can access that and just, get all the documentation collected so far.
Well, we're supposed to have a page and everybody's name will be listed, and we would eventually get town email addresses eventually, or one email address that would you know, I would answer it or send it to whoever needed to answer the question.
We might be able to create our own Google.
But you want to be, but I'm saying the information will be up on the town's website. So like these presentations, these PowerPoints, when I send them to like Kirby, she should be able to eventually put them up onto the site, just like any of the other boards put up the information, the minutes, the things like that. We'll eventually have to put all of that stuff up on the site once they set us up for it.
I got a question here. Is it Jeff? Yeah, Jeff mentioned that they had 2,500 panels. Is that what he said?
Yes.
2,500 panels. Mathematically, unless my math is wrong, I come up with 4,200 panels. Because he was saying one panel that they had was 517 watts,
Somewhere right on there, yeah.
and their project is for 2.2 megawatts.
Right.
So that comes out to be 4,200 panels. Did I get that right?
Don't ask me. But you can follow up with them on that to get the correct answer.
Because that's a lot of panels.
It is, but we get a lot of space too.
Oh, yeah, I'm just referring to theirs.
Okay, so Bob, you're the next person on the agenda. You said you wanted to speak to what
Well,
you found out about federal and state tax credits.
Well, the town doesn't pay any taxes, both either state or federal, so we get no tax rebates, or tax credits, I should say.
Okay,
So that doesn't qualify. But there are grants available, and they touched on New Hampshire Saves, the legislation. So we've got to research all that and see what's available. But at this point, I was told, based on the readings, that I think you confirmed that, you read the same thing.
Yeah, well, that's what I heard, but, you know, I could
There's
be
nothing
wrong.
available now.
Wait a minute.
There's nothing available now.
Maybe Doug knows
We
something.
could, we could find out.
What's that?
I'll ask the question.
Okay.
We'll try to find out, yeah.
so you're gonna ask up in Concord, like,
I have contacts, yeah.
I asked that question last week, and they said nothing was available, but keep checking back every couple of weeks, and something might come up.
Right,
Right.
right, that's what I heard too.
Well, there's only limited funds
See, this
available
goes
every
to-
year.
I'm sorry?
And there's only limited funds available
Right.
every year, and they're not gonna get much more. But they're parsed out too. There's a portion allocated to low-income projects.
Right.
And then the more richer folks, the ones that can afford to spend $4,000 to save $5,000, there's a certain percentage of them that can qualify. The backlog is quite a lot. And so, like the person said, if you're going to apply for something like that, you should apply for it right away.
Yep.
Because you're not gonna get it right away.
Yep.
Yep.
okay.
But there's other sources in those
There are other
links that I was
sources, yes,
talking about
other than New
that I've
Hampshire
sent out.
Saves, yeah.
Is
There's
there-
other sources.
And New Hampshire Saves is through Eversource, you said. They're the
Well,
ones that
it's
actually.
you can't believe how complicated these things really are. And so it's not an Eversource project, it's an Eversource, they manage it.
Wait,
They manage it, and the funds come from various sources in the state. Quite frankly, a lot of the funds come off of your electric bill. So that's how they get some of their money, and also from commercial recs and credits and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's important for the people here to understand, and this is just a fact, it's not one way or the other, because they talk about it sort of kind of like the wrong way, the news media talks about it the wrong way, but nothing prevents anybody, residential, commercial, or industrial, or even municipal, nothing prevents them from putting up as many solar panels as they want, as much as they want. There's nothing that prevents that. What they're talking about is everybody says they can't do it because there's only a certain megawattage that you can put up there for you to get money back. And so that's what they're really talking about, is that the fact that up until recently, it was 1 megawatt, but now it's 5 megawatts for municipal, up to, not including 5 megawatts, because you can't hit 5 megawatts, but just, 4.999, that would qualify you to get the net metering back. But Eversource doesn't pay for that. Eversource charges you, the electric customer, for that program. So every time you increase the amount of, increase your universe of more people that have solar and more money that they get, get credited for from Eversource, that increases the amount of money that they charge all of their customers within their territory, everybody. So just keep in mind that the more people put solar panels up and the more net metering that they qualify for, the more money will come out of your electric bills in the form of their rate hikes, because that's a cost of doing business to them, and they, in turn, present that to the PUC for justifying all of their right sides. So nothing is free. Everybody pays for the people that have solar, whether you have solar or not. It does affect your electric bill. So just kind of keep that in mind. So nothing prevents you from putting up 1,000 panels if you want, nothing. But there is a limit to what you can get money back for or get credit from. Just kind of keep that in mind. That's a it seems like a minor distinction that everyone seems to forget when they complained about the fact that, oh, we couldn't do this until we are allowed to do that. That's not true. They're always allowed to put as much as you want on there. They just weren't allowed to get this money back until we increased the cap. There never was a cap. I mean, the cap was for how much you have out there in order to get money back.
But
Well,
that's
you
what they
could have always
wanted.
put-
They wanted to get money back.
Well, yeah,
part
what
of the
they're
deal.
saying is that on its own, the industry can't survive on its own because it's too expensive. So in order to make things more palatable to people, the state has got these programs where the net metering, you get paid. You actually, the electric company pays about 4 cents a kilowatt hour for buying wholesale. But if they buy it from you because you have excess power, they got to pay 12 cents a kilowatt hour, and everybody in their territory pays for that extra money through their rate hikes.
The
So
power
like you said-
company's
so
never
like
gonna
you s-
lose.
Right,
Right.
they're gonna lose.
But,
No.
but if you're able to, a municipality is able to make their own electricity and not sell it back, use it, then that's a good thing.
That's a
You
good
see?
thing too, yeah.
Other than that, yeah, it's gonna go in your bill, because the fact that you're selling it back to them, they're not gonna lose money.
Right.
Right.
They're gonna.
They're only responding to what the state is telling them to do.
Right.
It wasn't, I mean, they didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart. The state
right.
says, we have this program, will you manage it? And oh, by the way, if you manage it for us, they may get a few bucks to help managing it, but most of the money passes, through them and back, but whatever they cost them, they roll into their rate justification.
So the more-
As any business would, I mean, they have to recoup their costs.
So in other words, the more people, residents, municipalities, and commercial facilities go to clean energy, renewable energy, the higher the cost of our bills will be on the residential side, I guess, commercially, because of the rate increases that the utility companies, electric companies are requesting. of
Until the technology is such that it's less expensive to run that program, then they shouldn't need subsidies, But until then, they need it.
Yeah. Huh. Kind of a,
Yeah, well, that's what the people want, and that's what the companies are responding, because they're regulated. So they're gonna do exactly what the state and the PUC tells them to do.
Okay, so, moving on, Mike had something unexpected come up and couldn't be here. So we'll push that forward to our next meeting. Rick, you said you wanted to talk about a few of the solar companies that you had contacted, and, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I don't have much progress, actually. At least I got the names of people for the town of Peterborough, Joe Huberman, contact information, Seth McLean, and also for Keene, got contacts there, and I'll pass that along to you.
Yeah, because you're not gonna be here for a bit, so I
Yeah.
can follow through on some of that stuff. and
Yeah.
Maybe get them to come,
Yeah.
or Zoom in or something. Okay. So we're coming to the end here. Anybody out in the public have anything they wanna say? Anybody?
well,
Go
I'm,
ahead, come forward
Ann,
and
Ann.
speak to the mic. Come on up, Ann, speak to the mic. Name and address, and have a cookie.
Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood Drive. I was wondering why you wouldn't want somebody to go to the Zoom meeting on electric vehicles, just to get some information, just to store it in your brains for when you do need it. Isn't all the information important to consider in that whole picture?
I guess. I mean, I was just thinking that by the time we're ready to use it, the information we get now is gonna be so out of date that would have to go again anyway.
I was thinking if you go to talk to Derry about what they're doing with, could be
Well,
doing
Josh is
with their
gonna sup-
fleets and all that, that might kind of roll into it, so.
Yeah, I mean, Josh will supply me with any information I ask, or any one of you. If want information from him, he's very open and very giving us, like him even giving us the way to do the RFPs and to have the checkoff lists and stuff. I mean, we can modify them, but that's like a whole step taken out of the process, which is kind of nice.
Okay.
No, you're right. We probably should look at it. Anybody else? Kara? No, not today?
Yeah, I think the primary thing, well, not the primary, but one of the things we really need to do is to divide up these websites. There's a lot of information online.
Yeah,
So-
no, I will do that. I
I
promise
just want to
you.
reinforce that.
Right. And, any of the stuff that we need from the town,
Yeah, I think that that's our next step. There's more data and maybe get a liaison going between us and certain departments.
because I did, I don't know, maybe it's too late to talk about this, but,
Never too late.
I did talk to Mike Malaguti, and I basically contacted him to find out who in the town I should talk to. And he told me that I should talk to Dave Woolley, who is
Solid
the-
waste.
Yeah, the DPW. And he took, what's his name? You knew him.
John Trotter?
John Trottier, no, John Trottier's
Dave
still-
Wally?
Yeah, Dave Wally. Did he take Trottier's position?
He kind of took over
Oh, no,
Steve Cotton.
Steve Cotton. So Mike is also gonna talk to Steve Cotton about this and find out what was done and.
To
get
find the
back me.
history.
To find the history of what was done. But what they did tell me is that there was an energy audit done, probably in 2017.
Okay, that was a while ago.
And that all of the buildings have been outfitted with LED lights.
And everything?
And the lights that you thought were fluorescent lights, he said LED out there, remember we were talking and you said those look like fluorescent lights? He said, no, those are LED lights too, that they make them now, that they look like fluorescent, but they are actually, then he told me that, and I found this interesting, that the fire station puts their old motor oil out back behind the fire station, and they pick that up and reuse that to heat the garage
At the
back there. Yeah, at the DPW.
Every month, the solid waste committee does that
That's-
on a Saturday morning,
That's a great thing.
and the residents can bring their oil.
Okay, I thought that,
We keep track of that, so it goes in, so yeah.
that's a
Residents
fantastic
can
energy
bring their
thing.
motor oil too.
Yeah, then he also told me that they use a company called UMG Bulk Energy. And that company has negotiated a price for oil, propane and gas for the town. That's a pretty good price. These are things I didn't know. You're all shaking your head like you know all this stuff. Sorry.
Yeah,
And-
but those things should always be looked at and revisited and see who's out
Right,
there
and I
to make
definitely-
sure we're getting the best price, just like a credit card, right? You do the same thing, right?
I definitely think so. But what was most interesting is that in 2009, there was an energy efficiency committee formed in Londonderry. And they did a whole report, which Mike has sent to me. I don't have a printer at home, so I wasn't able to print it. Oh, you have it? Oh, okay, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
This one,
Oh,
right?
here, oh, yeah, here it is, yeah.
This one right
Oh,
here?
good, yeah, okay. So so that was done, and there's a whole report there from that committee that talks about, you know, what they looked at and what they did. It's at the back of this handout. But I thought that that was maybe a good starting point. I mean, it's 13 years old.
Well, one of the
but-
things that Debbie said is not just the LED lights, but the sensoring, the sensor switcher,
Correct.
you know, dimming, or, you know, you walk in, they shut off
Right.
automatically, or walk by, they
he's-
turn on, shut, like the freezers at the
Dave
store.
Woolley has already put that in a couple of the buildings at his site. And all of these buildings are modern buildings for the most part, are town buildings. So hopefully that we have that here too, but something to find out
Look
about.
into,
But
exactly.
What we need is an energy audit for facilities such as this. And is it New Hampshire Saves or the Community Development Financing Authority gives out a $25,000 grant for that purpose. So don't we need an energy, well, we basically have something already, but how effective is our energy? I kind of combined all those things that was sent out, I think you sent that out, that shows us how much, what do you call it? Not megawatts, but, yeah, the megawatts we use in all our facilities.
Well, I don't know
That's
if you
what this
noticed this, but NH Saves is the one that did this energy audit.
No,
What
I
is that?
didn't notice that, but, okay, so we
Yeah.
have one, but it's old, and so we just need to look at it and see, you know, what's changed, and maybe there are better things out
So those
there.
two documents go hand in hand together
Yeah,
to get some assessment. But I think we need an energy audit to see if we can save electricity initially on our facilities. What do you think?
Well,
well, we have,
I agree with that, but I think we have to find out, dig more into what has already been done. We don't want to recreate the wheel if there's been one that's done fairly recently, and the buildings are fairly new, so.
When did they do this?
two thousand nine.
2009 for that one, but then he said that they did one in 2017,
Well, this one says
When-
2011.
2011?
Yeah. 2/18/2011.
And this was just for town hall building. only.
The fact is that there probably should be an update, and if it's available, the money available to do it, why not take advantage of that? We don't want to reinvent the wheel,
No.
something that's already been done, but if it's not updated, why not update it?
Right, I agree with that.
Okay. All right, so,
Who's gonna attack that aspect of it?
Well, I mean, I'll attack it in terms of following up with everybody from the town to find out what's been done already, and then find out what, you know,
We can coordinate on that
okay,
again. Yeah.
okay.
all right, so that's about it. Does anybody else have anything else to say or to add? Otherwise, I'm gonna accept the minutes. Anybody read the minutes, say that we're okay?
I think they were
I
okay.
didn't see that.
Documents that they were.
Okay,
I make
can I get a
to accept the
motion?
minutes.
Can I have a second? Okay. Everybody,
Oh, you're all in favor.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? And Doug, you have to abstain, because you weren't here.
Oh, no, I'm not I thought we were adjourning.
I know.
No.
I wasn't gonna vote on the minutes because I
All
wasn't
right, so
here.
we will adjourn once I say when the next meeting
thought you were
is. It's,
adjourning.
So the ne-
April,
So the next meeting you have on here is April 21st.
right, that's the only time the room was open.
Yep.
All right, so April
You also have
21st,
May 5th, is that gonna be another one? Or is that not?
I wrote it down, whatever they,
You have May 5th. and
no,
May-
I think I gave her a bunch of dates and then she came back.
So April 21st.
By the way,
At 7.
I won't be here on the 21st.
That's okay,
Me either,
that's okay.
session.
Just letting you know.
I can only come here when the room's available. So
You can
that's,
still come.
I
The
can
fact I'm not
come.
here is
I-
okay.
I'm awake at 3 in the morning.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so do I have a motion to
So moved.
adjourn?
Motion.
I
Adjourn?
Yep, so we got a motion
Aye,
by
second.
Doug. You second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion to adjourn. We're done.